So to go through the door, you have to turn a key, open the door, and walk through it. And with all that, there's actions, there's things to be done, there's steps to be taken to make that happen. Very simple analogy. But if you were to take that into the same thought process of leveling up, there's steps, there's a thought process, there's things that have to be done to walk through the door that you want to walk through. And it doesn't matter what it is. It a skill? Is it a position that you want to have? Is it whatever vision or dream you have in your mind? If you don't currently have it and you're not sure how to get there, you're going to have to level up in some way, shape, or form. You're going to have to take action steps. And it normally is uncomfortable because if you haven't done those things yet, it's going to be hard to learn how to do them. And when it gets hard and you start at the beginning of things, that's the most imperative time to double down, to level up. Because people hear the words, level up, let's go. People get excited. But in all reality, leveling up is hard. It's difficult. It takes energy and effort and thought process and resilience.
Yeah.
But it is the only way to get to where you want to go. It's the only way you can unlock the doors to whatever it is that you want in life. And today we'll be talking about all things leveling up, what it takes to make that happen. And what's so cool about this is you learn this and anything can be yours because everything is learnable. If someone's done it before, then all you have to do is look at what they did and follow those steps. Of course, you'll do it in your own way, but we'll be talking about all those things today. So yeah, Sean, when's the time for you where you had to level up to get what you want and it maybe not be as, and hey, maybe it does feel good. It doesn't have to feel bad, especially if you have the right mindset. But yeah, what's one you could speak to?
Yeah, so one of the things that points out to me that I like to take as a key point is, instead of like sweeping things underneath the rug, is identifying the key challenge. And so for me, there's so many challenges, there's so many obstacles, there's so many setbacks that we have in life. It's, hey, what's this one key challenge? Because we have so many goals, or we have so many of these different things that we're trying to do on a daily basis that for me, it became very overwhelming. And I just kept doing this every day, every week, every month, every quarter, and every resolution. But I was just like, man, I just feel overwhelmed. And so one of the things that I started doing that helped me out was breaking things down in small, manageable tasks and just identifying that one thing that was holding me back. And when I realized that, when I actually slowed down to go fast, and it took me several months leading up to a conversation with you, Ewan, about, man, this is a challenge that I'm facing. This is, I feel like, an obstacle that is holding me back because my thinking that got me to where I am today is not going to get me to where I want to go. And you had mentioned to possibly look into hiring a coach. So I did that. And one of the key elements, fast forward, is that my challenge was ego and pride. Up until about 33 years of age, pride and ego was a huge challenge for me. This was a huge blind spot. This was a huge hole in my thinking and in my mindset. And I was letting it drive me to the ground and everybody around me. And so now I'm so intentional about, am I being prideful in this conversation, in this situation? Is my ego getting the best of me? Because anybody that's listening to this, we all, to a certain degree, have pride and ego. And we've talked about this on other episodes. But once I learned this challenge that, this has been driving me my entire life. And a lot of that I learned from my early childhood. And one of the ways that I was able to learn about this challenge, but not only hiring the coach and going through that process, but I was brainstorming. I went down the rabbit holes, as we call it. I started writing, journaling, asking myself questions, learning about narcissism, prideful people, egotistical. And by leveraging those resources, I was able to shed the light on what we call a blind spot. So once I learned about this challenge, Ewan.
Did you do that before the coach, or after the coach? Did you start doing that? The journaling.
After the coach, I started doing that.
Okay.
So the challenge is I had a blind spot. Then I learned about the ego and the pride, which was, ultimately the challenge that I was blinded to,
Mm.
that I was not aware of, that he was able to shed the light on. And once I started learning about, oh, this is what's actually driving me in my results, in my success. Sure, I've gotten to where I wanted to go, but I'm unfulfilled. There's no meaning, and I'm only doing it out of of my pride and ego. So now, once I was able to address this, is I started asking myself the questions. I started taking action to overcome that challenge, in which was, how would this change my trajectory into the human being, the husband, the entrepreneur, the business owner to I want to go? Who do I want to become? Where do I want to go? And then I started focusing all my energy on the individual that I wanted to become, how I wanted to feel every day, how I wanted to show up. What did I want my day, my perfect week to look like? Because before that, Ewan, my ego and pride was just driving me. And
Mm.
this took several months. It took several months, several quarters. And still to this day, I challenge my pride and ego. But by identifying that key challenge, it's been able to help me really shift who I've become and level up in that area.
In that pride and ego, everybody has it to certain
Yeah.
degrees. Some people have, they might not have it as much as you, and there's other people who have it even more, and it has just got them rock solid stuck because of that. And it's typically myself included. It comes from a place of protection, trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And what's super interesting about that is that protection is preventing us from taking the next step. Like once you had the like you said, the blind spot, had the light shone on it from the coach, you suddenly realize I'm the one that's been holding me back. It's nothing out here. It's not the world, me against the world, and the world's not after me. It's me and my ego that stops me from doing these things. And a lot of it too, if you can't see it, like it's very difficult, and that's why it's so good to have someone else. Or if you don't have a coach, let's say if you're around other people that you trust, and they can communicate to you, and you can pick up things that you're like, oh, the response I got. You can figure out a lot on your own just with the response you're getting from other people. And whatever response you're getting from other people is because of whatever you did that ties in with whatever their ego and pride is doing. And so
Yeah.
there's always trails. There's always little nuggets that can tell you where are those blind spots and what do I need to work on.
Mm.
For me, I think a lot of the time it's hard to call ourselves out. We don't want to think we're the problem, that we're holding ourselves back. It's them over there. You did this to me. And
Mm-hmm.
that just doesn't ever serve you. You're left with blame. And what has blame ever fixed? Nothing. It just doesn't. So you have to look internally and what can I do? What can I change to level up? And yeah, I've experienced that countless times. Can't even imagine how many times if I was to think about it. But what does that
And
feel
this
like to you?
transitions into what I like to call a shift in mindset.
Mm.
And so if you don't have that shift of mindset, if you don't have that reframing of your thinking, then that's why in my experience, you feel stuck, and which causes overwhelm and frustration. Shifting that mindset creates that new reality of
Mm.
what's possible. And so whenever you face that resistance, whenever I faced the resistance of ego and pride, of this new reality, of this new outlook, I asked myself, what can I learn from this situation?
Mm.
And I learned a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
And I also asked, how does this challenge serve my long-term growth? And for me, Ewan, it came down to the emotional compelling nature of the why. Well, pride and ego, whether you have a little bit of pride, a little bit of ego, maybe if you're the one saying, I'm not very prideful, I'm not very egotistical, that's typically a sign of, where
Pride
is
and
that
ego.
showing up in other areas of your life?
Yeah.
Where are you not being coached? Where are you
Mm.
not being coachable? The people that I've learned that are most coachable, of the people that I've worked with in the last couple of years, their pride and ego is down. They're like, we don't have it figured out, but we want to learn from the people that have actually done what we're wanting to do. Those
Mm,
folks understand pride and ego to a certain
mm,
degree. Whereas I was the other guy. I was the guy that's like, I know it all. I'm the DIYer. I'll get it figured out. I'm not coachable. And
mm,
so these were all resistance and challenges. And so by asking myself the question and shifting that mindset and asking my and understanding like, okay, who it is that I need to become, then I took action. And this was a daily practice.
mm,
For me, it was journaling. It was my weekly planner that we've shared. It was by taking a pen and paper and getting comfortable, getting uncomfortable, and reframing them, the questions as this is an opportunity for me to grow and level up, be 1% better than I was yesterday. I'm not trying to be some of these individuals that you see as influencers on social media outlets that they think they have it all figured out or they look like they have it all figured out. No, 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 no. I'm going to be raw, I'm going to be real, and I'm going to be vulnerable because this is my authentic self. And then by sharing those reflections along the way, creating the mastermind group, as you know,
mm-hmm.
and with different individuals, this reinforced the shift in the mindset.
It makes me think about my kids. They just started soccer, so my kids are 8 and 10, about to be this October. Today, my daughter will be 11 this month. My son will be 9. And I remember I was playing golf a bunch, and my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, can I come to the range and hit some balls with you?" This is when she was maybe 8 or 9 herself, so it was a couple years ago. And I said, "Yeah, let's go." And she had her clubs, and she's just, I'm hitting shots, dropping them next to the pin. I've been practicing a bunch, playing a lot, and she is just in front of me, hacking into the ground with just like mud splattering everywhere. She can't hit that ball, and she's trying over and over and over again. And I go over to her and I said, "Hey, Henley is her name," and I said, try and do this with the club. Do this with your hands." And she was like, "Okay, okay, Dad." And she kept doing it. And then I was like, "Okay, now try this." And before I know it, I'm coaching her, teaching her, and I hear her sniffle, and I look, and she's crying. And I'm like, "Oh no, I've done it." I was very soft, very gentle. I never push hard. I don't get frustrated. But I realized she didn't want to be coached. She wanted to do it on her own. And ever since then, I've known that about her. And I went over. I was like, "Henley, I just realized what I've done. I've been coaching you, and you just want to enjoy yourself and have fun, and that's what I want for you too." So I hugged her, and I said, "Hey, if you don't want me to coach you, you just tell me, right? If you don't want that feedback, I'll wait for you to ask me." And so I left that very frustrated. It was frustrating internally because she's locking her own doors. She can't walk through what would be good for her if she listened. My son, on the other hand, Lachlan, I tell him, do it like this. Within one or two swings, he does it. He doesn't
Yeah.
question anything. He just looks, turns, and does. He's super coachable. And so
Mm.
now they're playing soccer, and I've been coaching him, working with him for a long time. And I've spent literally thousands of hours playing soccer. How to kick the ball, how to hit a laser in the left top right corner. And it took a lot. I filmed myself, I practiced, I read books, I watched videos how to get really good at hitting shots. So I'm just dropping all this knowledge on a 5-year-old. I remember he was 5 or 6 at the time, on how to hit lasers, which 5-year-olds can't do that. He listened. He just started. He can do it without thinking now. He just hits these beautiful shots. Henley, on the other hand, starting soccer, I know this about her now. She doesn't like to be coached. She doesn't want to be told what to do. She's very individualistic. I can see the ego, the pride.
Yep.
Perhaps that's what it is, and I do. It is a version, and it's been such a young age. And so I realize with her now, don't tell her what to do or how to do it. Offer suggestions, like offer um, even give her praise for what she's doing, and just be very encouraging, and almost wait for her to come. Or I'll ask, "Hey, do you want a tip, or would you like some advice on this?" to get her primed to listen. And and so now, recently, I said, "Hen, I've got a challenge for you." She said, "Okay, what is it?" I said, and this is with soccer, and I know it's a very simple analogy, but it is everything to do with leveling up. I said, "I want to see if you can juggle the ball 3 times off your foot, 1, 2, 3, in the air, which is very hard for a 10-year-old to do. And so I said the first key is all you need to focus on: roll the ball back and flick it up onto your foot and flip it up into the air. And I told her a story of how I did it. My story was I was 16 years old. I was very frustrated. I wasn't getting any better at soccer. So I went into my backyard and I took the ball and did one juggle. I just kicked it one time off my foot. I knew I could do a lot more than that, but I was just going to do it one time over and over. One hit and stop. One hit and stop. And I remember the time came when I was like, okay, I've done this thousands of times. I'm going to go to 2. So I went 1, 2. And I did it for thousands of times. And I went to 3, just hit the ball 3 times because I wanted to absorb all the little nuances of what it was to do that. I remember the day I ended up juggling 250 in a row, and it was no problem to me. And I told my daughter this story, and she really resonated with it because now every time I see her, she's in the corner pulling the ball back, flicking it up once. She's outside flicking the ball back, flicking it up, and now she's getting to the point where she can hit it 3 times. And this is within a couple of weeks. And so I just realized it's no different for adults, for us as grown, mature men or women, to level up, to walk through that door, to unlock it, to go through it. You have to step back and drop the ego, drop the pride, just like you talked about, and do the reps. It doesn't feel good when you're first learning to kick that ball. It's going everywhere. It's not doing what you want it to do. But that's life in anything. To level up, it's going to be that painful journey, that little period of frustration because you're learning something new. But then once you get past those initial stages, you start to really enjoy, and you end up getting to a place where you become very proficient. And I think that's the only journey. To me, it's just the cycle of how we level up as human beings. And it's true with all things, whether it's making more money or being a better husband or wife. It takes reps, lots of reps. That was a long story, but to me, I just had thought about that recently. I was like, man, that's everything. And I watched my daughter go through this, and I'm like, where do I need to start juggling the ball one time again, and
Mm.
and just do it over and over until I get that good at it, and just level up and enjoy the process. And it's not about the outcome; it's about enjoying kicking that ball, the joy of it. Why would you even want to do that, right? Well, because it's fun. It gives me freedom. It's an expression, and I think that's something you really have to get set in your mind before you go off down the rabbit hole to a place you might not have wanted to go.
That leads me into my final key points, man. I think that transitions perfectly to not only taking bold action, you as a role model, because that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm
Mm.
seeing your actions in being a role model for your daughter, because it's not one size fits all. And so you're in that moment, you're the dad, she's the daughter, she's
Yeah.
the child, you're the adult, and you're being a role model, but you're taking bold action in being a role model in how you coached your son, him being coachable. He was able to take action with your experience. And with
Mm.
your daughter, it was completely opposite of that. The opposite effect of, hey, this, you can't, the way you're coaching Lachlan
Yeah.
is not the same way, right? So you've got to show
Different.
up, and maybe they're in the different seasons of life, and so she needs a different a coaching held hand
Yeah.
with that transition of leveling up and taking that as a role model in bold action. And
Yeah.
so this leads me into one of my other points that I wanted to bring up was getting the right support. So I love that the story that you shared about Lachlan and Henley, they had the right support, because anybody else tries to do that, maybe they don't have the right dad or right role model that
Mm.
supports them. And they're sitting there frustrated, overwhelmed. Why is my kid not listening? Beating that up every single day. Well, that's not going to get you
Mm.
anywhere, right? Because you're letting your pride and ego keep you stuck. And so for me, it was one of the things when I hired my coach in this 3-month program for 6 weeks. When I hired him, I felt like the conversations every 60 minutes was just a repeat. We were just going over and over, spinning the wheels, rat race, just having the same. I felt like there was no progress being made, and my impatience, my ego, pride was still being challenged. And then I remember him finally sending me an email after the 6th conversation. And in this email, it said, Sean, I felt frustration and overwhelmingness on our last call, and you had made a couple comments. Think about this, and I just want to let this sit with you. If you have any questions on it, just let me know. But when I talk to you on the phone, are you Clark Kent or are you being Superman? And when I read that statement or when I read that sentence, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Immediately, because of his analogy, Clark Kent and Superman. And I don't know about you, but when I was raised, that's what I watched, Clark Kent and Superman. I was masking everything. I was Superman on the phone calls, Superman with running a business, and that Superman was that ego and pride. And that's all I ever knew because of how you do. Society was selling me this is, Superman. He's the man. He's getting things done. He's on the pedestal. And so by getting that right support with hiring that coach, he was able to shed that light on my blind spot and say, hey, are you the Clark Kent or in Superman in the way you're living your life? And from that moment in that email, when he said that to me, nobody else had said that to me. Not my best friend, my mom, my dad, nobody. Maybe they did, but I needed to hear it in that email. As an egotistical and prideful dude, I needed to have that right support. Just like Henley and Lachlan needed that right support with you and how you're showing up as a role model and the perspective and experience that you're sharing and how you're sharing it. When he did that for me, that changed my mindset, that shifted everything. And so that led me into celebrating that and really creating some momentum, seeking out people who had already succeeded where I wanted to grow. And that's what led me into the community, the leadership, the high level of accountability, and the insights of, hey, this is what I've learned. And I was making sure that I got the right support along the way so I can continue to help the people around me and just speak to my older version of myself.
What was that like when shifting from the Superman to the Clark Kent? If you'd been doing that, let's say you're as long as you could remember. So you had to change your actions and the way you showed up and everything. Do you remember was that a unique experience, like having to, okay, this is the Clark Kent version. He's not used to being out here with people. What was that like, and what was your experience and people's responses of you showing up like that?
Yeah, it was totally transformational. And what I mean by that is it was a more peace, it was more bliss, it was more vitality, it was more of living in the moment, in presence. See, when I was Superman, when you feel like you're Superman, and anybody listening to this, for somebody that they feel the pressure, right? Their business is counting on them, their spouse is counting on them, their kids are counting on them, the community's counting on them. They have all these responsibilities, they have all these different tasks. And when you're trying to be Superman on a daily basis and you're not aware of being Superman, and it's literally driving you into the ground. And then when you learn that, hey, Sean, it's okay. You can take the cape off.
Mm-hmm.
People will still love you. People will still support you. People will still be around you. People will still come into your life. People will still respect you. People will still be loyal to you. And actually, that all 10X's. Yeah. And on top of that, you'll have more peace in your life.
It's beautiful.
And so once I understood that, that's all I've been working on the last several years. And I've seen the progress. And just in the last 3 years, the version of Sean that's been taking these action steps in this transformational journey crushes that version of me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so all I've been doing along the way, and my final key point, Ewan, and you've mentioned this earlier, is celebrating the small wins. Progress feels so slow. Am I making progress? And I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I didn't see progress, and it feels so slow. But celebrating those small wins helped me build that confidence and momentum over the last 3 years, turning the small actions into the massive results and where we are today.
It's beautiful, man. Well, yeah. I think that's the perfect time to level up and live it, man.
Level up and live.
Beautiful.